What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Indie Sooner and the JP and Trav show. It's your boy JP. And to the bottom right of me, I have my amazing co-host Trav. Trav, how you doing, man?
Doing great. It's a little loud where I am, but hey, you gotta adapt and overcome. So I'm doing fantastic. Glad to have our esteemed guests on this evening.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And our guests need no crazy introduction, but John Williams and Josh Helmer from Locked On Sooners have joined us tonight, and so we're excited to have you guys, fellas. How you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm great, man. I'm ready to talk some Oklahoma football. We were talking before about how we actually get some football on Saturday. And so I'm pumped to watch a little UTEP UNT this weekend.
Absolutely.
Boomer Sooner boys, great to be here. Thanks for the invite. Always fun to be on the show and fun hanging out with you fellas.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We enjoy having guests on, and we know you guys have had us on your show, so we have to reciprocate, get you on the JP and Trav show. I'm sure this won't be the first time you guys are on here, or the last time. Obviously, this is the first time. But that being said, let's just go ahead and dive into our first talking point today. If you guys had to bet, who would be your candidate for offensive breakout player and defensive breakout player of the year for the Sooners, as we're now 10 days from UTEP? We'll go John first, and then we'll go Trav, then Joey, and then I'll finish up.
So offensively, okay, I've kind of been maybe alone on this island by myself, but I'm going to go with LV Bunkley Shelton. Like, this is a guy that's coming over from Arizona State, played a ton in the slot over there and has a lot of experience. I know a lot of people are projecting Drake Stoops to be the starter in the slot, and that may happen, but I think we're going to see a lot of LV as well. This is a guy that is very, very good out of the slot, played more than 92% of his snaps from the inside at Arizona State. And he gets an upgraded quarterback situation, an upgraded offense. So coming from a place like Arizona State that just was really not great as a football team to now you're a part of a good football team where you're going to have a good quarterback and a good offensive coordinator. That's a guy that I think is going to be slept on a little bit heading into the season. But by the end of the season, we'll talk about him as potentially one of the best transfer additions they made this year.
All right, so starting with offense, I'm going to go a bit off the wall. I'm going to go with Andrew Rain. I think, breakout, a lot of people think skill position players, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, right? But I think that Oklahoma's offensive line, really any offensive line, is best whenever the center is elite. I think Andrew Rain has the smarts to be that, has the physicality to be that, and with the added strength, I think that's what's really going to make a big difference in our offense this year. You see it even with the captainhood or captaincy, whatever you want to call it, is, Gabe, Creed, all these guys are captains. Bill Bedenbaugh puts a lot on the center, and I think Andrew Rain stands to have a fantastic year. He's got that quiet confidence about him. He's kind of always got that smug, like, I know something you don't. I know this offensive line is going to be crazy. So I had the opportunity, obviously, to fish with him. That was kind of fun during our little NIL adventures. So give me Andrew Rain. I know that's a bit off the wall, but I like it.
That might be the best name that any of us can mention. Really, anybody on the offensive line for Oklahoma. If that's one of the breakout players for the Sooners, that's going to bode well for Dylan Gabriel. It's going to bode well for everybody offensively for Oklahoma. I am low-hanging fruit. I am going that direction, though. I think for me, it's Jaleel Farouk. I love what we saw in the bowl game last year. Oklahoma's looking for that number 3 wide receiver. We feel really good, right, about the top 2 guys. You got a definite star in Marvin Mims, if not the eventual Bolitnikoff Award winner. I know he's got obviously some competition from our friends, not so friendly friends down south, and obviously Jackson, Smith, and Jigba up at Ohio State. But, I mean, Marvin Mims is going to be in the conversation for that type of award. Theo Weiss, let's see how he translates back with his health. We feel good about it. We feel good. He looked healthy in the spring game. There's not been any hiccups reportedly along the way. So 1, 2, you feel great there, but you need that number 3 wide receiver. I think we saw star power emerging for Jaleel Farouk. And I would also keep my eyes focused if we're talking skill guys, just the way that some of the buzz is built out of camp. I mean, I'm thinking maybe one of these freshman wide receivers as well.
Yeah, no, Josh, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Jalil Farouk is definitely one I was looking at, but I'm gonna go a little bit off kilter as well. Theo Weiss is somebody I think, like you said, we haven't really seen him play in a couple of years, right? And so the best year he had was his freshman year. We think about, I mean, sophomore year was more consistent, but just some more explosive plays his freshman year, especially the Baylor game that we all remember with Jalen Hurts being down 28-3 in the plays he made down the stretch there. And so just to be able to see him healthy and in an offense that can hopefully get him some touches and let him go to work. So I think he has a chance to really break out in the offense this year. Let's do defense now, and we'll go back the other way. So, Joey, we'll start with you, go to Trav, and then finish with um, John. And I apologize. I keep calling Josh. Josh, my bad.
It's okay. There are multiple Helmers, so it's no big deal. It will not be the last time that I get mistaken for my very famous older brother Joey Helmer. So no offense taken. Defensively, man, breakout candidates, so many directions that you could go there. This is probably not the name that a lot of people would think of, but I'm going to say Jalen Redmond. And I think Jalen Redmond, because again, we're counting on him to be a star for Oklahoma defensively. We think that he's going to be the NFL guy, right, on this defense. I mean, maybe you could look a couple other directions for that, but one of the first names in that regard would be Jalen Redmond. We've seen a lot of positive things, but we've also seen a career in Jalen Redmond to where he hasn't, in a lot of instances, been able to stay on the field. So is that going to change for Jalen Redmond in 2022? And then just beyond that, I've told this to John a number of times that, all of a sudden there's no Ronnie Perkins, there's no Nick Benito, there's no Isaiah Thomas. So all of a sudden where you could come in some, pass rush spot situations, and all of a sudden you're right in the backfield for your opponents. Now all of a sudden there's maybe some double teams that are going to get thrown your way. So breakout candidate, I want to see how he handles that role for Oklahoma. I know that's maybe not the traditional breakout candidate, but I think that's an important player and maybe the most important guy defensively for the Sooners.
Now, I know the low-hanging fruit here, and I apologize. I know it's loud. There's literally make some noise on the big screen because there's a corner kick. So literally at the time where I need to speak, it's make some noise time, oddly enough. But so I know the low-hanging fruit here is going to be Justin Harrington. He's the walk-on that looks like he might be the best player on the defense right away. But I'm going to go Jordan Kelly. Holy shit, we just scored. I mean,
Ole, 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 ole.
tell you what, this is awesome. Okay, I'm going Jordan Kelly. I'll continue to talk about it afterwards. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking at a guy that who I talked to before the NFL draft during his kind of combine draft process. I got to talk to Dillon Turner-Yell as he's getting ready for all that. And I asked him this question, and it's one that I really like. The answer is Justin Broyles. Now, he's a guy that's been with the Oklahoma Sooners for a long time now, like the elder statesman on this team. And he played the second most snaps of anybody on that defense, and yet we still somehow forget about him. But he's going to play a really key role for this team as a versatile defensive back that can play some safety, play some slot corner, and be a matchup option for certain teams. And so I really like that option. Another guy that I'm going to go with, this is the guy that I've been talking about since the Oregon game, and that's Marcus Stripling. The dude has just been ferocious since he's gotten on the field. The Oregon game, the spring game, nobody could block him. And I think that's going to be a guy. I mean, I've talked about the edge rotation ad nauseum on Locked On Sooners. But Marcus Stripling is kind of my guy that I'm excited to see what he's going to do with an expanded role, because him, Reggie Grimes, Ethan Downs, none of them played more than like 350 snaps last year. With an expanded role where these guys are playing 400 or 500 snaps on defense, they're going to have huge seasons. But my guy, Marcus Stripling.
Yeah, and it's amazing that nobody is really talking about the guy who probably would be the Vegas favorite to lead the team in sacks, and that's Marcus Stripling. That's really interesting. Jordan Kelly, for me, he's got an expanded role in the defense. He's been tabbed as Mr. Consistent. by multiple coaches. I think I've personally seen the physical change in his body. He's talked to me about, the different tutelage that he's receiving from Todd Bates and company. So I think you're going to see him, a guy that was kind of buried on the depth chart with injuries and this and the other, that I think Jordan Kelly's going to have a massive year.
I like all of your picks. I think another low-hanging fruit could be, I was about to say Peyton Bowen, Billy Bowman. Excuse me.
He's going to be all right too.
Hey, Billy Bowman is definitely a low-hanging fruit that I could choose, but I think I'm going to go with Jaden Davis. Just with some of the things we've been hearing from fall camp with him. He's somebody that his freshman year looked like potentially the best corner on our team. And obviously, throughout the last couple of years, he's been very much maligned. But, when you have a new culture established, a new defensive identity, and new coaches just across the board, it gives you an opportunity to grow and to show maybe the player that was in there all along. So I think that's one that may be kind of shocking. If I bet on that, I'd win a lot of money because I guarantee a lot of people probably don't want to put it on Jaden Davis, but that's probably who I go with.
A reminder that we have to use on radio every once in a while. Just because we say nice things about one player doesn't mean we think a different player sucks. Always a reminder.
It's true. All right, next talking point for us today. The Sooners are expecting some recruiting fireworks this weekend, and Trav is expecting some fireworks in half hour, maybe at the game. I don't know. We'll see. But where do you think the recruiting class ends up when it's all said and done? And then each of you can maybe give some things about what you've heard about this weekend as well. John, we can start with you.
Yeah, so we just talked to Parker Thune from OU Insider at 247 Sports on Sunday night. He's feeling pretty good about this weekend. I mean, Makari Vickers, Anthony Evans, both are looking to commit. I mean, Oklahoma's really been the trending favorite for Makari Vickers. It doesn't matter what site you look at, whether it's Rivals, On3, 247 Sports. Oklahoma is the betting favorite for this. And I think that's a great addition for the Sooners, an athletic defensive back that can play safety, play corner, play in the slot, a dude that can make plays on the football. The other big question mark now is Anthony Evans. And when we talked to Parker on Sunday night, he mentioned this is still kind of a coin flip. Nobody really knows. Both sides feel comfortable between Oklahoma and Georgia in this recruiting battle. And so that means nobody really knows where we're heading on this. And then kind of to answer the second question, I think Oklahoma's heading towards a top 3 class. This is not done. All of the evaluations on the prospects aren't finished. So we just saw PJ Adabare get his 5th star. How many other Oklahoma Sooners? Oh, and then Heath Azida bumped from 3-star to 4-star. Mm-hmm. So how many Oklahoma Sooners are going to bump from 3-star to 4-star? Eric McCarty could be one of those guys that gets a bump this season as more people find out about him. Are there more guys that on the 4-star commit list that are going to be 5 stars by the time the 2022 high school season ends? It's very possible. And so this recruiting class is constantly getting, recruiting bumps. So a top 3 class is not outside the question, especially when you consider that DJ Hicks is still very much heavily leaning toward Oklahoma, it seems. And they're very much on Malachi Coleman. So a lot of good things happening for Oklahoma over the next 6-7 months before National Signing Day.
Josh, go ahead.
Just reading the tea leaves, and I put a lot of stock into, quite frankly, what Travis has to say on these types of subjects, and then Parker Thune as well. John mentioned that we had Parker on the show. Just kind of reading the tea leaves, not taking that board information into the public sphere, so to speak. But man, I just think that Oklahoma's not done in this recruiting class. I think it's pretty obvious that they're not done. There could be a couple of flips along the way for Oklahoma. We maybe a Freudian slip for Bowen earlier in the broadcast, right? I mean, that could very well be a possibility for Oklahoma in this signing class eventually. And probably it will be for Oklahoma. I mean, it feels like it's trending in that direction. Sooners have legitimate, serious momentum on the recruiting trail right now. I don't know if I'm eager enough to say top 3 class for Oklahoma, but I'll hedge that bet and say definitely I think it's a top 5 class for Oklahoma, which frankly, guys, that has been uncharted territory for Oklahoma as of late and puts them in position as you keep thinking about building forward. If they start doing that, I mean, okay, well now all of a sudden you're on that level playing field with the Georgia, with an Ohio State, with an Alabama, and as many nice things as Oklahoma has done, they haven't been that, and they definitely haven't been that on both sides of the football. So I think they're going to I think they're going to finish up that way in this class, though.
Yeah. So in 2014, when we started Trey's Bar and Grill, we did so because we wanted Trey representative of the number 3. I was thinking to myself in 2014, the recruiting class in 2023. That recruiting class is going to be the number 3 class. I saw this 8 years, 9 years in advance. That's why we named it Trey's. So don't listen to any other stories. It is because we will have the number 3 recruiting class, which we, got into my crystal ball and named Trey's that. I think we're number 3. There are people in the facility that also believe that will be number 3. I think you look at guys like Cecilia Khan, Makari Vickers, Jordan Hicks, Ryan Yates, Peyton Bowen, even a guy like Marcus Deal. We're not all done on the offensive side outside of Malachi, Coleman, and whatever our other wide receiver is. If it's Evans, fantastic. If we go after somebody else, like trying to pull in Mike Tees, that's fantastic as well. There's another player we're not done with. So I spoke with Mike Tees yesterday or 2 days ago. He's not been radio silent with OU. They still are talking, nothing major or anything like that, but they are still talking. He just wants to play wide receiver, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Evans thing doesn't work out, Mike Tees becomes part of the class, which would help us statistically more than Evans being in the class, oddly enough, because Tees is rated so much higher than Evans in the 4-star status. I believe Evans is in the mid to late 200s off the top of my head. I think Micah is like 110 or something like that. And I also think Micah is a massive win for 918 recruiting. That guy is a tastemaker around here. He is a trendsetter. Anytime you go to local events, everybody knows where Micah is. Like, it's just how it is. He has somewhat of an influence over other people in the area. I think it's important to get him in the class. I think we end up at number 3. And because you have to think of some of the teams that are above us, what they tend to do in the season, right? Namely, looking at you, Texas. If Texas turns in a 5-7 campaign or even a 6-6 campaign, do you really think all those commitments stick? At some point, do recruits start to think, hey, 5-7 and 6-6, are we the class to turn it all around? What if Saban catches a wild hair and just really tries to go after Arch Manning? Does he flip? So stuff like that, you've got to consider. A lot of things can change, especially with people's visit policy. We're seeing it at USC right now. We're seeing Malachi Nelson and Zach Branch, and then eventually Mikhail Lemon take all these visits, and it's freaking everybody out. Well, we don't have to deal with that. So you can suspect that our class will continue to climb while others, like Notre Dame, will fall because they will have people decommit. They already had their highest rated decommit in Keon Keeley. They just signed the number 1,015 or 1,115 or whatever rated defensive end to take Keon Keeley's place. So thank God they're saved. But Peyton Bowen's their top rated recruit now. They stand to lose him as well. So when you have your top 2 rated commits in the class that are really the pillars of your recruiting class leave, some of the other guys start to think, I was signing on for this big historic class, and now all the top guys are leaving. What does that say about us? So when you start to see management of your company leave and all take other jobs, you start to think to yourself, what's the future of this company? You know what I mean? So anyways, that was the longest way to say that I expect to be the number 3 class.
Man, nah, I think all you guys are kind of spot on just with what we can expect this weekend and where the Sooners are going to end up. I think it's incredible to think that a couple months ago, yeah, people saying, "Oh, you're not going to finish with a top 20 class," uh, and just crazy that they would even say something like that. Just proves they don't follow anything, they don't know football. But yeah, no, I appreciate all your guys' input on that. I don't think I have anything really left to say about it. I think you guys hit the nail on the head. So we'll just move on. Baker Mayfield was named the starter for the Carolina Panthers this week. Do you guys see him staying with the Panthers long term, or do you feel like this is going to be a 1 year thing for him, good or bad? And he maybe will get a spot somewhere else. Josh, we can start with you.
My gut reaction is no, it's not a long-term thing. And that's kind of riding the fence, I guess, a little bit, that maybe it doesn't go as well as any of us would like. Not that it's necessarily going to go poorly though either. I guess the reason I feel that way, like that's a better bet to me because, okay, it could go really well. And essentially this is a contract year for Baker Mayfield. And if somebody else steps in and says, you know what, we want to pay Baker Mayfield more than maybe what Carolina comes to the table at the end of this season with, then Baker Mayfield's going to follow the money train. It could also obviously go very poorly. I mean, that's a reality of the situation too. And if that happens, then that would be into the road with Carolina as well. So I would say probably the safer bet is that no, it's not long-term, but I'd love if it was. I'd love if it was though, because number one, we all want to see Baker be successful. We want to see this redemption tour for Baker Mayfield. I know that he has it in him. We've seen good play at the professional level at times from Baker Mayfield. The other part of this is I like Matt Rule. I like the way that he talked about Oklahoma when he was coaching in the Big 12. I thought that, in terms of like opposing head coaches, Matt Rule was kind of one of the cool opposing head coaches. So I want to see him be successful. And if Baker's successful, that means that, probably more than likely that means Matt Rule's successful too.
Yeah, Matt Rule was ahead of his time. He knew to get on the good side of Oklahoma Twitter. Because being on the bad side of Oklahoma Twitter can ensure that you have a bad day. First of all, nobody can have a bad day with JP's little intros. The twice baked, it's incredible. Dude, that is a great headline. So twice baked, indeed. I do think they stay with him long term, simply because the word you're getting from around the locker room, even Christian McCaffrey saying it. Even Robbie Anderson, of all people, saying it, that he's just changed the locker room. I think they see this as, I think the players there are sick of just kind of being that laughing stock of the AFC South, just kind of that team you write off, that joke. I think they appreciate that little swagger, a little fire in your belly that Baker brings to them. And I think especially all the players, and I think this team might be decently good. Christian McCaffrey has not played under Matt Rule yet. He's been hurt. DJ Moore is likely the best receiver that Baker's ever played with. I mean, if you can figure out the offensive line, which they've retooled a bit, I mean, you've got weapons there. So you do that, you get kind of a team full of people that are, kind of the chip on the shoulder mentality, and good things can happen. The division is not strong outside of Tampa Bay. You've got a couple of the teams that, were in it for the Deshaun Watson, sweepstakes. They're probably glad they didn't get him. But I think this team is likely a playoff team, and I think an owner that is the richest owner in the NFL, I think he sees it as, look, we can finally have an opportunity to have stability at quarterback. Because stability at quarterback, as a Vikings fan, sure, I wish that we'd go after Kyler or somebody like this. But at the same time, Kirk Cousins isn't going to lead a 3-win team, isn't going to lead a 4-win team. You're not going to be bad with them. And you have that stability where you can, okay, now we can try and focus on offensive line in the draft. We can focus on secondary in the draft. You can do that instead of continuing to just try and swing and get a consistent quarterback. So I do think that he is long-term option. because of just the mentality and leadership that he brings to a locker room that has been completely void of it for so long. Keep in mind, Cleveland had Jarvis Landry as kind of the voice of their locker room. He was kind of, we saw through Hard Knocks and things like that. He gave very impassioned speeches. He kind of set the tone of the locker room. The Panthers don't have that. They don't have anybody like that. So with Baker in there, you would be getting rid of a quarterback, yeah, but then you would be bringing in Matt Rule off an injury maybe to lead your team after he's never had any snaps. How would the locker room feel about that? How would ownership feel about that? I think the Matt Rule injury might have bought Baker a long-term deal in Carolina.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. Baker's in the final year of his deal. How much more leeway is Matt Rule going to get in Carolina if they don't produce at least a winning team? They don't necessarily have to make the playoffs, but if they at least show some progression in the NFC South, because you mentioned Tampa Bay, New Orleans isn't going to be any slouch either. That's going to be a really, really tough team, at least, especially on the defensive side of the football. And so, Carolina's going to have a tough test ahead of them. I think Baker Mayfield is the guy to be there. I think what made him so popular and so endearing to Cleveland fans until he wasn't anymore was that chip on the shoulder, that swagger that he played with. Carolina, arguably one of the worst franchises in the NFL over the last 2 decades since returning as a franchise. Remember, they moved to Baltimore because they were so bad in Cleveland, they had to relocate. Carolina is kind of a bit that team. Like, sometimes they're okay. Sometimes they're really good, like they were, just after expansion with Jake Delhomme as the quarterback. And so I think they need a guy like this to kind of rally the troops a little bit, similar to like a Steve Smith, when they had the keep pounding drum going, and that was kind of like their rally monkey, cry as they were going to the Super Bowl. Like, Baker Mayfield could kind of be that guy, like the emotional leader of this team. He doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers for this team to win. He doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. We see it all the time in the NFL where quarterbacks that you wouldn't necessarily consider top 10 players at their position make the playoffs and go on deep runs. My favorite one to point out is Eli Manning. Shouldn't be on the Hall of Fame, is going to be there because he had 2 really good playoff runs in front with a really, really stellar defensive line helping to carry him along the way. Sorry, Giants fans. This is a Cowboys fan you're talking to. So Baker Mayfield, he just has to be solid to good, and I think he can be. You talked about the weapons, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson is one of the better deep threats in the NFL if he's got a guy that can give him the ball. As a Cowboys fan, I saw that just a couple years ago when Sam Darnold was the quarterback and getting Robbie Anderson the football. Like, he killed us.
I remember that game. It was incredible.
It hurt me to the depths of my soul, even as somebody who appreciates Robbie Anderson as a football player. And so I'm excited to see what Baker Mayfield can do with these guys, because McCaffrey, that's like a Joe Mixon starter kit right there. Like, if he can stay healthy, this is a dude that can kill you in so many ways. DJ Moore, this is very much a CeeDee Lamb style, not the same yards after catch guy that CeeDee Lamb is, but all the same kind of receiver. And then you got a Robbie Anderson who can win deep like a Marquise Brown. I'm not saying this is the 2017 Oklahoma Sooners all of a sudden, but this is a group that is going to be really, really talented and really tough to stop offensively if Baker can get a little bit of protection from the offensive line. This is going to be a solid team. They've built from the inside out, and now they have a quarterback that they think can actually lead them, somebody who can be productive. Again, he doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers for this team to potentially make the playoffs. He just has to play within himself and be a solid, player, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, something like that. I think that's good enough to get Carolina into like playoff contention. So long-term, I think after this season, we're looking at probably like a 3-year deal for Baker to make sure okay, yes, he is the guy long-term. But if he has one of those seasons where he puts himself into MVP discussions, you could be looking at the franchise tag in the offseason and then this huge Kyler Murray style deal. Quarterback money is ridiculous right now. Trav knows it. He sees Kirk Cousins getting guaranteed money all the time. That's just what the quarterback position is in the NFL. It's not a matter of whether you deserve it. It's, do we want you to be our quarterback? Yes. Okay, here's the bag. And so I think two things could happen.
Or like JP's Colts, do you go by way of having a different veteran in every single year and never having stability at the position?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I think Baker's a long-term solution because I don't think Carolina wants to get into the, the veteran quarterback carousel with other teams rebuilding at the quarterback position in the same division. And yes, I said Matt Rule instead of Matt Corral when I said the injury. Many of you must not follow the Carolina Panthers very close because, of course, Matt Rule was in his house the other day, sprained his ankle, so he's not going to be thinking clearly this season. He's going to buy Baker that long-term contract. You guys think y'all caught me slipping, but y'all just got to read up more on Matt Rule.
Yeah, so for me, I think he's anywhere from a short-term 2 to 3 year answer to long-term answer. I don't think they go in another direction after this year. It's just going to be a matter of what does he do on the football field that determines kind of that next contract.
Yeah.
For those of you concerned, I do have a beer. This is the 918 Cerveza 918 Stand Up. This is Cabin Boys' collaboration with FC Tulsa. And since I'm already interrupting, got to wish my mother a happy birthday. The beautiful Sue Davidson has her birthday today. So everybody, happy birthday in the chat to my beautiful mother. So, and we can go to the next topic. Sorry that interruption.
Happy birthday, Miss Sue. We appreciate you and your support that you always give us on here on the JP and Trav show. But no, I agree. I think that Baker is going to potentially have the opportunity to get a long-term deal. Like you guys said, I mean, and Trav, like you said, I'm a Colts fan. 4 years ago, actually, today, I was at the game, preseason game against the Bears, where literally in the stadium we find out Andrew Luck is retiring. And I remember looking at my friend like, yo, did you see this? And I mean, we're in the stadium, like, and people did. Now, look, it wasn't a lot of people, but people did boo. There was a couple, right? And everybody was mad at them because that was stupid. Andrew Luck gave his kidney, his liver, right, to Indianapolis. We still love him to this day. He still lives here. It's just frustrating because we went to Jacoby, which again, that's why I told Browns fans, if you think Jacoby better or Brissett is better than Baker Mayfield, you're drunk because I saw him for 2 years. He's not. Then we go to Phillip Rivers at 40, basically 40 years old, old man Rivers, what we call him. Then now we went to Carson Wentz, and again, I know leadership wise didn't really work out. I didn't think Carson had he really didn't have as bad as a season as people said. If you really look at his year, it was actually decent. It was pretty good. He had a good quarterback rating. He just did not come through in clutch moments, which is an issue. And then you have some of the other stuff. So regardless of all of that, yeah, you don't want a turnstile going. I didn't want Matt. I wanted Baker in Indy. I did, because Matt Ryan, for as good as he is, and he's had a great camp, and I think he's going to do great. I mean, we maybe have 2 years of him. I don't know if he's going to fall off a cliff. Not everybody can be Tom Brady and stay, healthy and at the top of their game till they're 40. So, you want a young quarterback, and this is a potential situation, where Carolina can maximize the potential of Baker Mayfield and put him in the system maybe he was always meant to be in. Have guys around him that actually want to uplift him. Hopefully, have continuity for him, unlike he had in Cleveland. Because for whatever reason, like we talked about, you want stability, and the Cleveland Browns are just like, oh, you know what? Forget stability. We're just going to go grab somebody that's not even going to be here this year for a guy that helped us get to the playoffs and win at least 7 to 8 games a year when we were winning 2 on average for the last 4 or 5 years. But I digress. I could talk about that all day. Let's move on to our patented game.
Right before that, you have to look at where Carolina is. They can get Baker at a discount on a 3 or 4 year deal, as opposed to these insane guaranteed numbers that are getting paid out to everybody else. They could look at it and say, okay, do we go get a guy like, I'm not saying like Deshaun, but like a guy that's a free agent that we're going to have to pay 230 guaranteed, 250 guaranteed, whatever the number is at the time, or we could give Baker, 4 years, 40 a year, 4 years, 35 a year. Excuse me, I'll back that number down. But that's good money for Baker. They can still put pieces around him because they don't have enough tied up. Like it's good for Carolina too, because no matter what happens, they're not going to have to, unless he goes and wins the Super Bowl, they're not going to have to pay him like a lot of these other people are having to pay their people. So sorry, I wanted to get that in. Go ahead, JP.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like that analysis right there. Let's go ahead and get to our patented game, this or that. John and Josh, that's a game we do on JP and Trav show where I give you two prompts, and you have to select which one you'd rather have, and kind of give a little bit, not too much of a dissertation we're looking for, but just a little bit of defense of why you would choose that. Some of the ones have gotten pretty spicy over the last couple of weeks. I don't think the ones I have up this week are too crazy, but we'll see. All right. We'll start with John on this one and go around. First one, and in the chat, make sure you guys are listening. D.D. Westbrook or Jermaine Gresham. Now, both of these guys had great careers with Oklahoma. Jermaine Gresham has a fond place in my heart. My whole family's from Ardmore. Jermaine's from Ardmore. My mom and Jermaine's mom went to school together. I saw Jermaine play growing up. But D.D. Westbrook also was just a beast with Baker Mayfield when he was there. And obviously was in the Heisman contention for the 2016 season. So which one would you rather have, D.D. Westbrook or Jermaine Gresham?
Oh man, you gave me a tough one. This was a question that I posed as I was putting together my all-time offense over at Sooners Wire. And I'm going to have to go with D.D. So Jermaine was my tight end 1, and D.D. was only my wide receiver 3. But D.D. Westbrook has done something that no Oklahoma Sooner has ever done, and that's win the Biletnikoff Award for the nation's best wide receiver. His 2016 campaign was one of the best receiving seasons of all time for the Oklahoma Sooners. So I'm going to have to give it to D.D. The dude was a downfield threat. He can win in the short area of the field as well and make plays after the catch. I mean, was kind of unstoppable, in that season for Baker. And I think I'm just going to have to go with D.D., man. That's my guy.
I'm going with fellow restaurateur D.D. Westbrook of the Go Crazy food truck. So, I mean, that's really what set it apart for me was his, foray into the restaurant scene. That really showed me that he's got a different gear to him. I mean, again, Biletnikoff has got to put him over the top. He was unfair. Jermaine was always a just natural mismatch. He's kind of the first of his kind. Unfortunately, his NFL career would have gone a little bit different. We should stay healthy, whatnot. But I'm going with D.D. Hard to turn down a Biletnikoff restaurateur.
Man, I hate having to choose between famous Sooners that I love both of them. But
hey, you weren't here during some of the other ones that were way tougher. Like it got awkward.
Okay,
Tyler, I'm sure would be a difficult one.
Josh,
it was Patty Gasso versus Barry Switzer.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a rough one. That is, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I'm glad to not have to answer that one. I love both. It's D.D. for me, and I think a lot of it is because of the way that football is today. That game-breaking speed, we see it in the NFL. Man, like what Tyreek Hill has been for Kansas City, right, has totally changed that offense for the Chiefs before Patrick Mahomes, during Patrick Mahomes, and now we're about to find out, okay, is this a lot of Patrick Mahomes' success? We're about to see that with Kansas City this season. And for Tua Tagovailoa, okay, that speed of Tyreek Hill, we're about to see what kind of difference that can make for Tua down there in Miami. My guess is it's going to make a pretty substantial difference. D.D. Westbrook, we saw that up close and personal at Oklahoma. I just think the way that offensive coordinators construct things nowadays, man, that game-breaking speed, if you've got the option to take it, whether it's a D.D., whether it's a Hollywood, you need to, with that first draft pick, go speed.
No, I like that analysis. I probably would have to go D.D. Westbrook too, and I would agree with all of you guys what you said. But I think Jermaine Gresham was a little bit before his time too. Just the type of tight end that he was, and how consistent he was in the passing game. I mean, he was, obviously Mark Andrews ended up having a better career with OU than Jermaine did, and some of that's because Jermaine was hurt. But I think
Can we say he was Kyle Pitts before Kyle Pitts?
you can. I mean,
just a tall, like a jumbo wide receiver.
I think he dominated in that way. I mean, I think that if you have him in today's NFL, you look at a Travis Kelce, obviously Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, etc. I think that Jermaine would probably have, and he had a decent NFL career, but I think, potentially he could have had a better one if he had, been born a few years later. But no, I think Dede ultimately, because of Biletnikoff, I agree, is somebody that you probably just have to have on your team.
Listen to this 6-game stretch for D.D. Westbrook in the middle of the 2016 season against TCU, Texas, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Iowa State. 6 games. He had 47 receptions for 1,012 yards and 12 touchdowns. He did something that not very many wide receivers can do over a full season in 6 games. I mean, arguably one of the best 6-game runs maybe in Oklahoma history. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a stats guy. I like to bring up stats.
No, it was nuts. I mean, even just thinking back to it, everything that felt like he was making a big play every single week at that time, and that's why he ended up being at the Heisman ceremony, right? So, all right, next one. This one is kind of a non-OU one that we do as well every week. Who would you rather, well, not rather have, I guess. It's more of a, who do you think, I guess, is going to have a better first year as a young, new head coach or former defensive coordinators? Marcus Freeman or Dan Lanning?
So I'll go first. I'm going to say Dan Lanning. I think the opportunity to have a better season is there for him. I mean, Notre Dame's independent schedule just is tough. It's just a difficult schedule to walk through each year. Oregon's going to have a little bit of an easier road. Not to say everything is going to be easy, because he will have to play Utah. They will get a tough matchup with USC. They open the season with a tough matchup against Georgia. So that's Georgia right off the top.
Oregon doesn't play USC this year.
Oh, okay. So if they meet in the title game, Oregon USC could be a tough matchup. But I think the road to a successful season is a little bit easier for Dan Lanning in year one.
I got Dan Lanning because, as Steph says, ring me. He's a national champion, defensive coordinator, just fresh off a national championship season where the whole defense gets drafted basically in the first round is what it felt like. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with the schedule. So Pac-12, super easy schedule this year. Obviously, they've got the early date that they're probably going to get slaughtered. But I think it's what, like a 21-point spread or something crazy in that first game. It's something. It might be even bigger than that. It might be higher. But Lanning, I think Freeman obviously is recruiting better, even though he's losing some of his top guys. He's recruiting better, so they're definitely buying whatever he's selling up there. You could always argue which is the better job. It's basically Phil Knight versus blue blood history, pride, all that kind of stuff. Biggest fan base probably in the country. But yeah, I'd go with Dan Lanning.
I like the arguments you made, and it's probably the only argument you need. Schedule's easier for Oregon. I feel a little bit differently, though. I don't know if it's just I'm not totally sold on Oregon, and it's not that necessarily I'm completely sold on Notre Dame either. Quarterback situation is something that we got to see get straightened out at Notre Dame. I just think top to bottom, they're better than Oregon. And even though the schedule is obviously much more difficult, Notre Dame has to play Ohio State and everything, I just think by season's end, we're going to say Marcus Freeman had a better season as a coach than Dan Lanning did. Like they could end up with the same record, and because of the schedule that Notre Dame's playing, we say, yeah, that was more impressive what Marcus Freeman did.
Yeah, I can see that. I think when I look at it, and Trav, and then Josh, I think, especially Josh, what you said about the quarterback situation. I was having a conversation with a couple of my coaches today who, most people here in Indiana are Notre Dame fans. So, I said, you guys haven't had a consistent quarterback in years. I have a freshman soccer player who, she's Ian Book's biggest fan, and she knows college football pretty well. So me and her go back and forth. And I was like, look, sweetie, Ian Book was okay. He was just okay. And she was like, he's one of the best quarterbacks Notre Dame has ever had. And I said, exactly. That's the problem. So that's you need a better quarterback, especially in this day and age. To at least get you to that level. So I think Marcus Freeman has done a great job, like you guys said, recruiting. I think he's doing new, fresh things with the Notre Dame brand, which are going to be cool. I think Dan Lanning, because of his schedule, will have a better first year in terms of success. But I personally feel like Marcus Freeman will be better over the long run. So I didn't ask whether it was short term or long term per se, I guess. But I guess that would be my answer. Trav, you got something? You look like you're mulling over, or you good? Okay. All right, last one. And this one, to me, I saw this on Twitter today, and just personally to me, I felt like it was blasphemous. I don't know what y'all gonna think. This is a food one. We always do this. Obviously, Trav is started in the restaurant business, still is a foodie, just like I am. So I saw somebody say that they would take Raising Cane's over Chick-fil-A. So I figure we have this conversation. Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's? Josh, we can start with you.
The individual that you're referencing is Alex Storako, the transfer pitcher for the Oklahoma Sooners, who said she would take Raising Cane's over Chick-fil-A, which is, of course, blasphemous. The top to bottom. And I hate having to pick here. I love Raising Cane's.
Me too.
The top to bottom roster, the service of Chick-fil-A. I mean, come on. It's not even close. It's Chick-fil-A. Stop it.
No. Yeah, you hit it on the head. It's the service that sets it apart. I mean, when the U.S. government was looking for ways to set up their vaccine, like drive-through vaccine implementation, they actually brought in Chick-fil-A executives to help the U.S. government be more efficient with their policies. When they're bringing you in because you give the best service and they want you giving that service to Americans, even in their healthcare, and we know how much the U.S. government typically doesn't try and make life easier on people, but even they saw it. Yeah, it's until Cane's got that going for them. Nah, it's Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, so I had my first experience at Chick-fil-A the other day where I didn't receive a my pleasure after saying thank you. I got a God bless and some other really nice things, but I didn't get a my pleasure.
Sue? I think you can sue for that. I think you actually have the franchise now.
Yeah, people at work, where I work at the hospital, they think I have worked at Chick-fil-A in the past because anytime somebody says thank you, I always say, well, my pleasure. It just rings so nicely in the ears to hear that. But it's Chick-fil-A. I mean, sorry to friend of the show, Alex Storako, who came on with us a couple months ago. You don't know what you're talking about on this front. I mean, maybe they just don't have a Chick-fil-A where you grew up in Chicago, and I'm sorry that they didn't, but it's Chick-fil-A. You can't get a spicy chicken sandwich at Raising Cane's. What Raising Cane's does is really, really good, but it's very short-sighted in what they do. So give me Chick-fil-A. I'll take the regular sandwich, the chicken sandwich. Shoot, that grilled chicken sandwich is fire every single time. I might even eat a salad at Chick-fil-A because everything is so good there. And it's going to be hard to catch me eating a salad from time to time. So if Chick-fil-A can get me eating salad, it's got to be good stuff.
Now, Alex is from Michigan, correct?
She went to Michigan, but she grew up in Chicago.
Okay, went to Michigan, grew up in Michigan. Okay, so here's the problem. Here's what happens. Okay, because I was born and raised in Indianapolis, so I think what she's probably doing is she's probably had Raising Cane's for the first time. And you know what? Like your first Raising Cane's experience, because we don't have them in the Midwest. I mean, Ohio that does, but Indiana, Illinois, Michigan don't have them. So, when you have it, you're like, man, this is crazy. Like I try to tell my friends up here because we have one Zaxby's in Indianapolis, and everybody thinks that's great. I'm just like, look, Zaxby's is like the C version of Raising Cane's. So like you just when we have the opportunity, we can go to Raising Cane's. I'll show you. But like I don't understand how you go from like, and I love Raising Cane's, so it's gonna be painful for me to do this. How you go from saying, oh, there's a menu with you got the chicken sandwich, which is just chicken strips on bread, and then you got the caniac combo, or 4 pieces, 3 pieces, 2 pieces. They do it well. But can we talk about range? Can we talk about variety? Right, like you said, spicy. You got regular. You got the chicken tenders, which arguably some people might say could be as good as Raising Cane's chicken tenders. I mean, you got the shakes, the frosted lemonade, the frosted coffee. We're not even mentioning breakfast, right? I mean, we're not mentioning Chick-fil-A breakfast at all. So I just don't know how she got to that conclusion. I think she probably just had Cane's for the first time. I'm imagining that cane sauce hit her taste buds. It does something different to you. It does. I remember my first experience, but hopefully she sees the light and comes back soon.
Well, I mean, isn't Raising Cane's the people to blame for Spencer Radler's demise? He signed that NIL deal with Raising Cane's. All of a sudden, he had that chicken grease all over his hands. Couldn't throw the ball downfield.
One thing we can certainly.
That's what I heard in the Instagram, in the Instagram comments, that Raising Cane's was the one that ruined Spencer Radler. So and maybe that's why she said it. She knows that Raising Cane's be dealing out them NIL deals, and she was like, "Hey, I'm open for business."
One thing we got to credit Storako on in this is, hey, we knew she was a performer, but with this, she has sparked quite the performance in the reaction from everybody in Sooner Nation and beyond.
Oh man! Now look, we're looking forward to her pitching her way to another national championship for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2023. So don't worry about it. All right, guys, we got about 10 minutes or so left. A couple of you guys are coming over from the OU Insider Show, and we didn't send Brandon and Parker a cease and desist letter because they're very good friends of ours. Trav and Parker talk probably every day. But, it's just like, dang, y'all, like we've been doing this about a year. Wednesday nights, we ain't ever had nobody do a show on Wednesday night, as same as us. And 2 weeks in a row, here we are.
Former friends of the show. Now they're just people who were on the show.
This is that episode of The Wire when Bodie's crew sets up just down the block from Marlowe's crew, and they're trying to beef on territory, and Bodie thinks it's going to be okay, and then Marlowe's crew comes through. I mean,
shout out for the Wire reference. I appreciate that.
One of the greatest shows of all time.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. So let's get into our Q&A time with the time that we have left with our friends Josh and John. Let's see. Here's a good one to start off with. Do you guys think OU will get David Stone? What about Cunningham and then David Hicks as well? Lots of questions from our guy Matt Bingham.
Well, there's three questions there. There's three of us, so you guys go ahead and pick one to talk about, and then leave me one to talk about.
Because it's so far away still on David Stone, I'm still going to kind of lean no. I mean, I think it'll happen, but it's so far away. It's hard for me to say, yes, it'll happen. Does that make sense?
No, that makes no sense. He's going to be a Sooner.
Hey, take it from Travis. Don't take it from me. I'm not the recruiting expert here.
No, I'm not either. But with Stone, it comes down to a similar factor that it comes down to for Peyton Bowen. I'll just put it like that. But I still think that Stone ends up a Sooner, one of the first probably 4 Sooners in the 2024 class, because that defensive line is going to fill up quickly. So
Man, y'all bring the receipts and tell me that I was wrong about this because I can't wait.
yeah, we'll replay this. Josh, go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll just tee off on Hicks then here. Sounds like that recruitment is trending in Oklahoma's direction. Obviously, it would be a gigantic get. And when you start thinking and talking about really the other two, I mean, I really do believe in the domino effect when it comes to recruiting, and getting that commitment in favor of Oklahoma, I think potentially swings, these other two kind of in Oklahoma's direction as well. Sounds like that's going to be a yes, though. Everything I'm hearing from the people that I trust and would be in the know on that are saying that is headed in Oklahoma's direction. So I'm saying yes on Hicks.
So Cunningham is
It looks like
Frozen.
we lost him for a little bit.
out, right? Okay. Hopefully you got me back. So, anyways, you've got Zadavian Sims, defensive lineman in that class. You've got Nigel Smith, defensive lineman in that class, both OU leans. You got David Stone in that class. And with that fourth spot, who does it go to? That's going to be the question. I personally think T.A. Cunningham's move out to Los Alamitos High School will have a bit of an influence on that. I honestly, if there's one guy that I felt strong about earlier that I don't feel as strong about now, it's T.A. Cunningham. You also have to look at guys like Heaven Brown Schuler. He's kind of big in the South Carolina circles right now. But the thing about our 2024 defensive line class is it's going to fill up quickly. So people are going to have to jump at it early. And if you get Stone, Sims, and Nigel Smith on board, you might see somebody like a T.A. Cunningham pop because they're like, man, I have an opportunity to be with the best line in the country after we signed the best line in the 2023 class. Because I personally think that if we land everybody that we think, which is going to be Cecilia Kana, PJ Adebare, Derek LeBlanc, Jordan Raynaud, David Hicks, Colton Vosick, the possibility of like Marcus Deal coming along as well. That is the best defensive line class in the country. So you have the opportunity, if you're a 24 defensive lineman, to kind of look back and say, okay, they're really doing something at Oklahoma, but there's not 6 5-stars ahead of me. You know what I mean? So like an A&M type situation.
All right, next question. So it's somebody's own spin on this or that. Quentin Griffin or Samaje Perine?
I'll go first. I'm going Samaje because he's the single game leader, all time leader. I mean, he's as far as college production goes.
Yep.
I know he wasn't on a national championship team. Totally get it. Maybe if we had the defense that Quentin Griffin had on the other side of the ball, he might have been on a national championship team. But I think as far as just production at Oklahoma, I got to go with Samaje, Big Papa P. Ryan.
So I like the stats. Big stats guy. We talked about it before. So Quentin Griffin only had 300 and change fewer yards than Samaje Perine had in his career. Now he had more carries, averaged fewer yards per attempt, and had fewer rushing touchdowns, but had far more receiving yards. Quentin Griffin had 1,200 receiving yards, 1,240 receiving yards to Samaje's 321. So you're looking at things, basically Quentin Griffin had more total yards with the Oklahoma Sooners than Samaje Perine did. And Quentin Griffin had 4 years. Samaje Perine had 3 years. If I'm doing my math right, 9, 10, yeah. So, I mean, it's fairly even because if you give Perine another year, maybe he has more production. I'm going to go with the Natty. Like, give me the guy that won the national championship and was the feature back for the dude. Now, I only became an Oklahoma Sooners fan back in 2007 when I started dating my current my wife, not my current wife, my wife, because I only had one wife. Audrey, if you're listening. So I'm going to go further back to the last national champion, Quentin Griffin, he was the spark plug that helped drive that offense and helped them win a national championship.
I'll be quick on this. Samaje Perine's the more talented of the two, but come on, boys. It's Q. Are you kidding me? The eyes of Texas have been blackened. It was Q, baby. It was 2000. I mean, come on. I'd love to see Quentin Griffin, too, in these newer offenses where you're a little more creative with how you get running backs the football. I know that obviously the shovel pass back then was huge, and they used that a lot with Q, but would it be fun to just see him in kind of modern day offenses? I mean, I think, like I said off the top, Samaje is the more talented of the two running backs, but man, I got a real soft spot in my heart for Quentin Griffin just because of that era of Oklahoma football.
Yeah, but give Pirine the 2000 defense or put Pirine on that team. And, I mean, the eyes of Texas are blackened all the same. So, I don't know. Call me crazy, but like I said, I'm going with the guy that holds the NCAA rushing record, single game rushing record. Call me crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you also have to look at which he's now also sharing a running back room with the same Joe Mixon that is going to be a top 5 running back in the NFL this year, and was
he's on my fantasy team,
right? And was probably by all metrics a top 5 running back. Maybe someone maybe say top 3, depending on who you talk to, running back last year. And Joe Mixon was more talented out of the two. And he still, in 3 years, became the all-time leading rusher for the Oklahoma Sooners, which, if we're just looking historically, are not shabby at the running back position. So I'm going to go with Samaje Perine. I understand the sentimentality in that Q won a national championship. I get that. I get where you guys are coming from. Can't hate on it, but for me personally, that's what I'm going to go with. Also, he graduated high school at the same time I did. So, class 2014.
Hey, JP, right. you and I are going with the facts over feelings, whereas a young man like Josh went totally with feelings.
John,
100%
emotion. What can I say? I'm a sentimental man.
100% emotion.
I'm not above it.
Ain't John a stats guy though?
I think he let the emotion take over a little bit.
Those receiving yards, man, they're hard to not consider. I mean, you talk about the single game rushing record, and we talked about D.D. Westbrook's 6-game stretch.
But Q was the feature. Q was the feature.
He was.
Like Samaje did this as second fiddle to a first round running back. You know what I mean? Like that's got to count for something. More yards per carry, more yards, more touches. I mean, I don't know. Call me crazy.
No, I mean it's a valid argument. I mean, Samaje Perine was a great runner. He was. I mean, but let's be real.
Not according to you. Not according to you. That's all. John's taking Marcus Major over Samaje Perine right now.
Some might
because he had a good game against Florida.
Yeah, somebody accuse me of that sometimes when listening to Locked On Sooners. I mean, come on, like. Quentin Griffin, I think we forget just how great he was at times for the Oklahoma Sooners. I mean, especially that 2002 season. I mean, we always talk about the 2000 year, but that 2002 season, the way he finished it, the last 9 games of the season, 1,400 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns over the final 9 games of his Oklahoma Sooners career. I mean, just incredible production for a guy that, had he played in the modern era of the NFL, he might have actually had an NFL career. But still, back when he came out of college, people weren't looking at 5'8", 5'9" running backs that were under 200 pounds and thinking that they could be something. Things have changed. Potentially, that guy is not maybe a starter, but maybe he's a number 2 running back on a team in 2022 versus 2002 or 2003.
Yeah,
I love Samaje Perine. Like he was one of the best running backs I've ever seen.
That's not what I hear. It's not what I hear. I hope Samaje doesn't tune in.
He's gonna choke me out next time he sees me.
Locked On Sooners never getting credentials. All right, old Spray got us going. Who is our leading receiver and leading rusher for the season? How many yards and TDs? Those of you that tuned in today know my answers. So I'm going to let y'all Y'all answer first.
Leading receiver is going to be Marvin Mims. He's led the Oklahoma Sooners in receiving yards each of the last 2 seasons. I think he had the most TDs each of the last 2 seasons as well. I'd have to go back and look that up, but he definitely did last year. I can't wait to see this guy actually featured in this offense as opposed to being a part of some strange wide receiver rotation like we saw last year. There was no reason that he shouldn't have been getting, a featured amount of snaps and featured amount of targets for this team, except this offense had no clue what it was doing last year. It was such a disjointed effort for a lot of the season in 2021. With a plan and with an offensive coordinator who is going to be excited to take advantage of Marvin Mims' deep ball ability, I look forward to watching him lead the Oklahoma Sooners in receiving yards. This isn't a popular opinion. A lot of people are down on my optimism for Eric Gray, but I'm gonna stick with the guy that's going to be the starting running back going out of camp, and it's going to be Eric Gray leading the Oklahoma Sooners in rushing yards. And then as far as TDs go, give me Marcus Major. You know how much I love Marcus Major over Samaje Perine.
I'm about to jump in an elevator and sign off here shortly. They're closing up, but yes, so I'm going to go quickly. Leading receiver, you are correct. It will be Marvin Mims. Yards, I'm putting them right at. I think I had it at 1,050. I think was my prediction. I think leading rusher is going to be Eric Gray. He will also lead them in touchdowns, not anybody else. Appreciate you guys coming on. Again, I'm going to lose connection because I got to get off the Wi-Fi, but I will catch up with you guys soon. I'll tune in on the phone on the way back to watch the end of the show.
Appreciate it, Trav. Good hanging out with you, man.
Hey, see you guys.
Well, Mims, no doubt. I mean, to me, it's going to be a massive shock if Mims is not the leading receiver for Oklahoma. I mean, hypothetically, there's a scenario where maybe that's great for OU, that Mims is not your leading receiver. I mean, maybe that means that Theo Weiss or Jaleel Farouk or insert freshman here, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, maybe they really, shocked and wowed us and stepped up to the plate in that regard. But I just think, man, given Jeff Levy's track record, the way he feeds his number one wide receivers, JP, I just don't see there's any way that it's not going to be Marvin Mims as the leading receiver. And I'm going to I hate to do it. I really want to say Gavin Sawchuk. I really do. But I'm not going to. I just can't. I just can't with good conscience say it's going to be Gavin Sawchuk. But I do think that both freshmen are going to have legit opportunities at some point this season to potentially make the job theirs. Both Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, I think, are going to have that opportunity. I'm just not totally sold at the top with either of the two running backs in Eric Gray or Marcus Major. I love both. I'd love to see either one of those two guys just take this thing and, no pun intended, run away with it. But I'm not quite there yet. I need to see more. But having said all that, I'm going to say Eric Gray just because it sounds like the coaching staff is most enamored with him, at least going in. Maybe they're selling us a bill of fake goods here, JP, but that's kind of how it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, we're not dealing with the old regime where, Austin Kendall and Kyler Murray are neck and neck. So, I think that BV and company are as honest as they can be with us for sure. But no, I agree with you guys. I think Marvin Mims clearly has got to be, I don't think anybody would say anybody else would be the leading receiver. And, I don't know, maybe 1,100 yards and 8 TDs, Richard, is what I'll say for Mims. And then leading rusher, I'm just going to stick with Eric Gray until, Marcus Major or Gavin Sawchuk or Barnes proves me wrong. And, especially Marcus Major proving Trav wrong and, shutting down the major haters out there, which I'm indifferent. I'm neutral. I'm Switzerland on the conversation. I can see both sides. But I think Eric could probably have right around 1,000 yards. I think if we see him return to his Tennessee form, sounds like he's, really cutting really well. And, obviously we're going to see him, utilizing the backfield a lot more in passing concept as well, more than we saw him last year too. So wonder how that factors in. But yeah, that's probably what I'll say is Eric Gray and Marvin Mims for that. Let's get one more question, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Still a couple minutes over, and then you guys need to go to bed so you can get up for work tomorrow and be full of life. No, I need to be. Man, I got too many kids to deal with. Okay. Here's a good one to end on. Who do you think will be the sack leader this season, and who do you think will have the most interceptions?
All right, I'll tee off first. Sack leader this season. I think you guys nailed it earlier. Because Jalen Redmond is going to get a lot of attention, I think, in the double teams department. Jalen Redmond's going to have a very, very productive season for Oklahoma. All Big 12 type first team season, I think, for Jalen Redmond. I think he's a star. But the tops in the sack department, we got a sneak peek of it in the bowl game. It's Marcus Stripling. That's who's going to be your sack leader in 2022, in part because of how much of a difference maker Jalen Redmond and both Jeffrey Johnson are on the inside. That's going to free Stripling up on the outside to just get deep and go sack some opposing quarterbacks. Most interceptions, man, the buzz is out there for Justin Harrington, but I'm going to stick with my hype machine of Key Lawrence. I just love his development. I still think 2022 is a season where he can be, if he wasn't already a breakout star, guys, I think that he is on that track for Oklahoma, and I see his playmaking type abilities. So I'm going to go with the Key defensively.
Yeah, for me, interceptions, this might be a little bit outside the box, but I want to go with David Agwebu. Now, he may not start for the Oklahoma Sooners, but this is a guy that's got the athleticism and he's got the length to be very, very disruptive in the short area of the passing game. And so we've seen him make diving interceptions in the past. And so I think the leader in interceptions could do that with like 4 or 3 interceptions on the season, because you just don't see a lot of players getting a lot of interceptions these days. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's Key Lawrence with like 8 or something on the season, and it's just a big game changer. On the sacks department, I got to go with my guy, Marcus Stripling. But I think it's going to be one of those things where maybe the team leader in sacks maybe has 7 or 8, because you get a lot of guys eating. Like you get Jalen Redmond with 5 or 6, Ethan Downs and Reggie Grimes with 5 to 7 sacks apiece. You get one of your linebackers is going to have 5 or 6 sacks. I just think there's going to be a lot of guys on this team. They're going to be eating lunch in the backfield for the Oklahoma Sooners this year. But I think Marcus Stripling. I got Marcus Major on the brain. Thanks, Trav. Appreciate you, man. Marcus Stripling. Now, that would be an upset if Marcus Major led the team in sacks. Marcus Stripling, I think like 8 to 9 sacks leads the team for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2022.
What about you, JP? Who you got?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with Ethan Downs. I'm a big Ethan Downs guy. Ethan Downs stan, if you will. Yeah, I'm going to go with him for this season. I think he can have easily 7, 8 sacks. But, John, I agree with you, man. I think that the whole defensive line is going to have opportunity to eat in this scheme. So I think we could definitely see just a lot of different guys have, 5 to 6 sacks potentially. And then interceptions wise, I'm going to go with Woody Washington. I think that Woody will have a couple of opportunities, and he's shown the ability to, be a ball hawk in the past. I remember that 2020, I think it was his either freshman or redshirt freshman year, the Red River game, and I thought it was over. Unfortunately, we got back into overtime with him, but we intercepted that Sam Ellinger pass in the back of the end zone, if you guys remember. Just great play. Basically looked like he was a receiver. And so, I think to hopefully be able to see him get back to that form. Not that he's not been consistent, he's been injured, but, just with even better coaching now and in a better defensive system and scheme, I think we can really see him take off here. So, hey, real quick, Trav just FaceTimed me. He said he wanted to get one more in. He said the reason that P. Ryan wins over Q is because he did the most disrespectful thing in OU history by kneeling again at Bedlam against Oklahoma State on the 1-yard line instead of taking it in to the end zone. So that was Trav's final input on the Samaj JP Ryan Quentin Griffin debate. John and Josh, man, thank you guys so much for coming on. It was a blast. Sorry we ran a little over, but hope you guys had a good time, and thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, it was a blast, man. We really enjoyed chatting with you guys. It was fun to do that on our show the last couple of weeks as well. So yeah, you guys do great work, and we're big fans as well. So thanks for having us on.
I'm all about the classy, unclassy gesture from Samaj P. Ryan. That is potentially a game, set, and match for Perini. Now that Trav's brought that to the table, JP, man, hey, thanks so much for having us on the show. Like John said, I'll just echo what he said. We loved having both of you guys on Locked On Sooners. And to everybody right here on the JP and Trav show, it's been fun watching the comments section over there. It's been cool to see the viewers and listeners interacting live. So appreciate you guys as well. JP, Indy, thanks, man. And we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, and Trav does too. Even though he's got a little bone to pick with John right now, but we both love you guys, and man, appreciate you on the show. Like I said, definitely won't be the last time. I'm sure we'll talk during the season and everything. So tell them where they can find you at on Twitter and everything, and when you guys do your show, and then we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, so we'll drop our next episode on the YouTube side of things tonight. The podcast will be in your feeds tomorrow morning. We're going to talk about Stuart Mandel's Big 12 projections over at The Athletic, man. We got lots to say about that. That'll be our next episode. But you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Sooners. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams and Josh at JoshOnRef. And you can find our show on YouTube as well. We just hit the 2,500 subscriber mark, so big shout out to all our listeners and followers over there. We're looking forward to, man, this is going to be a great season. I don't know how it's going to end up, but it's going to be a great season to follow for Oklahoma football.
And Trav and I get to kick it around every once in a while on the radio side. It's fun when we get to do that. You can listen to myself on the ref alongside Chris Plank every Monday through Friday, 9 to noon over on KREF. Just download the KREF app and you can listen to us worldwide.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate you guys, and like I said, we'll be in touch soon. Man, we're 10 days away from Sooner football. It's going to be exciting. So make sure you guys stay locked in the chat to everything with Locked On Sooners, JP and Trav show over the next 10 days as we count down to beating UTEP. But that being said, appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. Boomer.